I grew up in a Christian home all my life, but I didn't really know the Lord growing up. Like, I went to church and stuff, but it was mainly because I was like forced to go more than me wanting to go and actually learning. And so growing up, we had some family things happen when I was in junior high, but luckily, my family is like still together and we're as happy as ever. But in high school, my junior year is really when I strayed far from Christ. Like, I started drinking and partying and just not like being what I was taught to, what I was taught to be when I was growing up. And so I just like wasn't surrounding myself with the people I needed to be. My senior year got a little bit better, but my freshman year of college was pretty bad. I got into a sorority, which there's nothing wrong with sororities, it's just when I was in it, it wasn't exactly a good influence on me. But I got into a sorority and it's like I was reliving my junior year again. Like I was drinking and just doing like stuff that I shouldn't be doing. And so freshman year, right before I left for, second semester, right before second semester started, I went to Big Spring with some of my friends. And right before I left, my mom read me Hebrews 10:26. And it's, if we deliberately keep on sinning after we have received the knowledge of the truth, no sacrifice for sins is left, but only a fearful expectation of judgment and a raging fire that will consume the enemies of God. And so my mom read me this, and I was like thinking about it, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is God talking to me, but I'm about to go and party and drink and just, totally ignore what God's saying to me. And so knowing that I was going there and that I was going to go against what God was telling me to do, really had a toll on me when I got back from Big Spring. When I got back, I had a serious depression and anxiety hit me, and it was, so I was in school at Tech, and I thought that I was going to be able to get through my my depression and stuff, and that I was going to be able to finish school. But it got so bad that I had to get out of my classes just because I was like, there's no way I can do this right now. Like, my mind is not even functioning. And so one thing I did before I knew I was going to get out of school is I signed up for a camp called Foundation. And it completely changed my life. But we went when we had our Foundation staff retreat, and at this time I hadn't had any help at all. Like, I was still super struggling and stuff. And so I went to this Foundation staff retreat, and when I went, I was at my lowest breaking point, but nobody had any idea, just because I didn't want to share it with anybody, because I didn't want to make a big deal out of it. And so I had to leave a day early from staff retreat, and because I had work. And my dad had moved to Dallas for a new job, and he was in town visiting us because we hadn't moved down there yet. My mom hadn't moved or anything. And so when I got home, he was there, and I was like, oh my gosh, thank goodness he's here. So I just ran in his arms and I started bawling, because I didn't think there was any hope anymore. I was like, there's no way that I'm going to be able to be here anymore if this is just how I'm going to be living my everyday. And so I was like, I just told my parents, I was like, I don't know what's wrong with me. I just keep getting worse and worse, and there's really, I don't know what to do about it. And so my mom messaged my therapist and just told her what had been going on, and she was like, oh, well, she has a chemical imbalance and she should probably come see a counselor. And so I got signed up with a counselor, and I got on medicine to fix my chemical imbalance, but it was still throughout that, I was just still like it was hard in the beginning because I didn't think there was going to be like light at the end of the tunnel. I thought it was just always going to be a dark hole. And it was hard for me to understand that it wasn't going to be a dark hole at the end, but that there was light. And so as I was going to see my counselor, I became really good friends with this guy, and he just totally like helped me. You know, we talked, we hung out every day, we were best friends, and he was just, it was just like he was such a great influence on me, and he was so godly, and you could just see the light of Jesus shining out of him. And so he made a big impact in my life, and I believe that God placed him there for a season in my life just to lead me in the right direction. And so I guess things started getting better around that time, and I started seeing the light again at the end of the dark tunnel. And so I went to my foundation camp, and it was right before my sophomore year, at the end of summer before my sophomore year, so like a semester back. But I went to this camp, and I was a counselor, and I had four students, and like none of them, they just when they came and when they left, I saw a huge difference in all of them. And it was like I felt like it when I went there, that it was my job to make sure they left with, you know, Jesus in them, and I felt like it was my job to, you know, show them love that Jesus shows us every day, and it definitely was my job. But that's when I really realized like who God was. I was like, this is crazy. Like, there's people here that came, they didn't even know this was like a church camp, and just because, you know, Jesus is living through me, I could see a change in them. Like, and so one night that really affected me, I went back and I was like looking around at everyone just to make sure nobody needed anything, because it was like the last night of foundation before, you know, we went back. And so I was like, I just want to make sure nobody's crying or nobody needs me to pray for them. So I went back, and this guy comes up to me, and he's like, hey, can I pray for you? And I'm like, why? Like, I'm trying to like help these people or whatever. And so he prayed for me, and he was like, God is so proud of you. He's like, he's just smiling down on you right now, and there's a guy over there that shed a tear because he saw you worshiping, and that's how he wanted to be. And so that moment I was like, oh my gosh, like, feels so great to like be used for something greater than myself. Like, God is using me to like change these people's lives, and there's no greater feeling than that. So from that moment on, I had already changed, but it wasn't really like it just clicked after foundation, and I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to share my testimony with people so that they can learn, and so that they can know that there's a hope, and change, like have God use me to change people's lives. And so, you know, I shared it with my family and stuff, and everything that happened to me, and from then on, from then on till now, I've just been growing with my faith and meeting incredible new people every day, like going to conferences, and just realizing that God is the most important thing in my life, and that when I have Him, I don't have to worry about anything else, because I used to be a big worrier, and I think that's a lot what brought on like my depression and anxiety. And with having God in my life, like, that is completely gone. Like, all my worries, all my stress is gone, and it's just so fulfilling, because the way I was living before was completely unfulfilling, and I just never want to go back to that. And so